Woo, it's Saturday, oh my God. Thank you for coming here to my panel. I'm a little surprised because I thought everyone would be wasted and or turned up somewhere else. But you're here with me, and this is great. It's awesome. Yeah, get it. I mean, I'm pretty sure most of you have flasks or like. Did you say gin? Yeah. After the panel, come to me. All right, so I am Eddie Lebron. Some of you might know me for my history in MAGFest. I've been coming here since 2009. I got my career start here by making a bunch of weird fan films. I did a Mega Man fan film, a Sonic fan film, and that was my beginnings here. And then from Sonic, I just continued down my career, and my producing partner says I should mention, yes, now I work at NBC. I have Emmys. It's all fun and great and whatever, but it all started here, and I love this place back from the Alexandria days. And here we're going to do a panel called Bad Cinema and You, a masterclass question mark. This came to me about 5 years ago when I realized I was spending way too much time watching bad movies. Even in film school, where I'm supposed to be watching everything tailor-made to be artistic and just to hone me for the future, I still remember my sophomore year, no joke, a representative from a production company came in to talk to us. It was finance and distribution. And this individual spent 45 minutes talking to my class about working in the entertainment business. And then he's like, you know, my production company, we just signed this one director to a distribution deal. And then he proceeded to show, before anything was online, one of the main scenes from Birdemic. So I was lucky enough to watch a scene from Birdemic before anybody knew about it in a random class in film school. It was amazing. And the class lost their mind, and I was transformed. And this was around the time of The Room. And The Room, not to be confused with Room, The Room, The Room. There's only one room. And since then, I've had this weird theory moving on through my brain about, are bad movies actually educating me as well as good movies, if not more? I would spend my free time watching Mystery Science Theater and just anything that was pumped out that was remotely bad. And as we all know, our intake of bad content began with the advent of YouTube. Before that, we were watching bad movies. Before that, we were watching bad everything. But with the invention of YouTube, starts, with all these critics just pumping out reviews and clinical analysis and these thrashings of bad movies, more people are starting to take in bad movies. And since all this happened, I have always held this theory that bad movies are great educationally, which is wild. And that's the whole purpose of this panel, is I want to engineer and reverse engineer how bad movies are actually teaching you to be better content creators, better filmmakers, better critics. So show of hands, who here makes videos in any capacity? Okay, so this will ring true. And there's a bunch of people here, I'm gonna assume it's most hands, who here watches bad movies for fun. There we freaking go. And I watch it for research. No joke. Because I hold true to my heart that in order to know what's good, you need to know what's bad. And I know filmmaking is this broad spectrum of things and people involved in pre-production, post-production. But for the sake of the panel, I simplified it into a very cute pie chart. And it is adorable, and it's slightly 3D with a drop shadow. It's great. We're truly living in the 21st century. And for the sake of this panel, I broke up my kind of thought process into what makes a movie. Much more goes into making a movie, but we can break down a film by sound, editing, directing, cinematography, acting, writing, and so on. And I feel like it would be very educational for us if we go one by one, using examples from bad movies. What can we learn about each element of filmmaking? How does it make us a better content creator, and what lessons we'll learn? And they'll probably be, I initially wasn't going to do audience participation, but like, I'm operating on 2 hours of sleep and a lot of coffee, so I'm like, I want to chat with you people. So when we watch bad movies, I think the first thing we'll always notice against everything else is acting. Acting it's literally the first bad thing you're going to see. Like, you can watch the best shot movie, edited movie, but acting is a dead giveaway of a poor, like, you can't excuse bad acting. It goes through producers, a director, a cinematographer, post-production. If bad acting makes it to the end of the movie, that is pure core incompetence. As someone who in the beginning of his career directed a lot of bad actors, I would know. And I was thinking of a few examples that would emphasize a few points in terms of reverse engineering, like, what can we learn from bad acting? We don't notice bad acting until we see it. The whole point of the art of filmmaking is it brings us in. It doesn't bring attention to itself. You'll notice good acting, you'll notice good cinematography, good directing, but halfway into that movie, if everything is running on 100% full octane power, you are engrossed and you're along for the ride. And sometimes things go a little bit differently, and sometimes you watch a movie that just doesn't work.
We can't stay here.
It'll be fine. I'll clean it up.
There's no way in hell we can stay here. No. No.
You have to trust me.
Stay here.
I'll clean it for you.
Oh my God! What are you doing? How did I get here? Oh my goodness! What is this? What are you doing? Oh my God!
It's clean. It's all clean.
It's the bigger love of the fact.
Now, here's the thing about that. I will say objectively that previous scene was shot okay. The dialogue wasn't even bad, but the acting, I will say that's, and Neil Breen has so much bad acting in his movies, but that was one of the scenes that hit me so hard in terms of the full misunderstanding of acting. And it all goes back to, at the end of the day, it was shot fine, the dialogue is okay. The dialogue is so simple. I'll clean it for you. No, no, no. I'll clean it for you. No, no, no. You can give that to two competent actors and they will work with it. You give it to a competent director, they can bring it out of it. It takes a level of incompetence on a directorial and a acting level to take that and turn it into that. So fundamentally, what can we learn from that? We can learn just everything from subtlety to subtext to pacing to casting, which I will say is the most important thing about anything you will do is casting. It does not help that he casts himself in his movies. It does not help that he casts someone who, no offense to Neil, he probably wants to bang them. So it's a whole weird hodgepodge of just something within Neil tells him to be in his movies. And also, I will preface it by saying, like, I don't want Neil to change at all. I want him to keep doing what he's doing. I want him to keep doing everything that he's been doing for the last 10 years and keep pumping out, because that's his art. That's what he does. It's so bad it's good, but I'm not going to lie and say that it's not bad. And at the end of the day, I am here to educate, and fundamentally, through casting, through directing, that scene could have been salvaged. Now, there are many times in which a director takes a good actor and somehow, some way, brings something out of them despite the fact that they're an Oscar-nominated actor who has worked with Stanley Kubrick.
my husband is having an affair with your wife. I don't think we should talk about it. Does your pet kill them?
Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God!
What movie?
I actually don't remember the name just because I only know it for the scene and I refuse to watch the movie because I've read the rest of the movie is just boring. Specifically this scene, if I remember correctly, the director picked this take because it was the most interesting. And at the premiere, Ryan O'Neal, who, if memory serves me, was in freaking Barry Lyndon, was so agitated and upset that that's the take that made it into the movie. And I don't blame him, because at the end of the day, that's a competent actor. That is a fully competent actor, an Oscar-nominated actor, and through intervention of the director, a performance was turned out that didn't work, which brings us, to the next phase, which is directing, which I will say is much less transparent than acting. Bad acting is fully transparent, bad directing isn't, because at the end of the day, that whole pie chart is made of so many elements that if everything goes well and the directing is bad, sometimes you won't even notice. Sometimes a director will fail upwards and make a great movie despite the fact they don't know what they're doing. You can look at reports from the last 4 years of Bryan Singer. At the end of the day, it seems like it's implied that his DP and his editor were carrying him through a later phase of his career. So what does that say about his competency for someone who ditched half of his movies because of hissy fits? So sometimes it is invisible. A bad director, you will not see it, and you have to dig deep. For example, a bad director can take someone who is a competent actor, like in the previous clip, and render a bad performance out of them, or being able to rein them in. Another Oscar-nominated actor who was ran through the ringer and just can't deliver.
All right, you're gonna help me make some fucking cash, bitch.
I wish that Freddy Krueger would come and chop off your head and it would roll in.
I'm actually going to boost up the audio because I want to hear his goodness. It makes me happy. So pardon me. Bam.
You broke it.
Nah, it's fixed. I needed to just boost the audio.
All right, you're gonna help me make some fucking cash, bitch.
I wish that Freddy Krueger would come and chop off your head and it would roll in the street and a truck would squish it and the blood would splatter everywhere and everyone would watch it.
Now, The Fanatic is directed by Fred Durst, and it's apparent. If you've seen The Fanatic, it is competently shot, as you saw. It has Devon Sawa, which I think is awesome, and it has everything it can. I genuinely think, from an outsider looking in, if you've seen The Fanatic, it's a story of a hardcore fanatic who has infatuated with this actor and will do anything to just interact with them and take a photo with them and all this other stuff. And I think the concept for the film works. The script isn't horrible, but it falls under the leadership of Fred Durst, who not only didn't know how to handle this material, but didn't know how to handle John Travolta in the lead, which I will say, at the end of the day, well, number one, it's a so bad it's good movie. I don't want it to change, but if you look at it as a objective filmmaker, a director could have had a conversation, because we know John Travolta can do amazing and horrible depending on who he's working with. He was doing horrible, and then Quentin Tarantino directed him. He was doing amazing. He did Face Off, which was amazing, and then so on and so forth, Battlefield Earth, and so on and so forth, Punisher, so on and so forth, and at the end of the day, I don't know what projects he's picking, but based on the directors, that's the result of an incompetent director who doesn't know their material, doesn't know how to work with the actor. And from watching all this, you are taking in the fact that every element can be working, but you as a director need to be the main filter for what you're getting in front of that camera. You are working with that actor to get something that works on camera. You are working with that script to get something that's plausible. And at the end of the day, a director cannot take a script and just pump it through a lens and hope for the best. You need to work with the content that you're given with to produce something that is tangible. And at the end of the day, the script is not awful. The whole film falls apart based on how John Travolta is throughout the movie, and the fact that Fred Durst is incompetent and he put his own music in the movie. So it's just like, yeah. So it's also and then it rolls into another scenario where there are good directors that we know can make good movies. They can make good movies, and somehow, some way, we don't know why, we don't know how, they let things get out of control, and it leads to this.
I hear you whispering. Planning on stealing something?
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
I will argue that M. Night can be a competent director when he wants to, and I do not know when he's making a film how things fall apart in a way like The Happening. Marky Mark is a good actor. He can be a good actor. I mean, he was even serviceable in the Transformers movies, but serviceable, not good, serviceable. In this, the cadence in which he delivers his lines, the cadence in which it comes across to me as a filmmaker, he's not given the correct motivation, the not correct scene foundation, not the correct tools to work as an actor, which relies on the director. And we've seen M. Night do movies that work. The fact that Unbreakable is as good as it is means he was able to handle Bruce Willis and create that movie, a weird abstract superhero movie that is well paced, well acted, well shot and everything. And there's Signs and Sixth Sense, so it's the beginning of his career. He was firing on so many cylinders and showing he was competent of making a good movie. And
the Avatar is dead. If he was here, he would protect us.
My name is Ang, and I'm the Avatar. I ran away, but I'm back now. It's time for you to stop doing this!
The Avatar would have to be an airbender. Are you an airbender, boy?
Leave him alone!
How is he doing that?
I don't want to hurt anyone.
All airbenders should be dead. Kill him! Firebenders! Let's attack! Okay? Everybody can help us now!
Don't be afraid!
there's a lot to be said here. I need to stress I need to stress the multiple levels of incompetent directing here. From dialogue, from acting, and something that I think you all noticed, casting, cinematography, pacing. The last minute and a half was one take for a scene that, number one, didn't require it, and number two, the one take slowed down the energy completely. There are moments where a group is doing an action, the other group should be overlapping with them, but everyone's literally waiting for their cue and waiting for their mark. Like, there's no reason someone should put up fire and then all of a sudden 7 people are dancing to throw a pebble. And that is all directorial, because if you're an outsider looking in, M. Night decided in this moment, I want to do a one take because it's going to be good. Could a one take work? Maybe, but the execution is dependent on blocking, pacing, just the camera movement, the energy, all these things that work. But somehow, some way, he decided, I'm going to keep it floating on a Steadicam from one position for 2 minutes, and we're going to float back and forth, which is, at the end of the day, a directorial decision. You are tasked as a director to create energy, to create pacing, to support your actors. And if you've seen The Last Airbender, those actors had no support. From the moment of the miscasting to the moment of the performances, it is a huge turning point in M. Night's career, because it is just a tentpole movie that completely fell apart. And that is on his shoulders as a director. So what can you learn from this? You have to learn that every facet of your film is dependent on you as a director. And you do have to think about blocking, and you do have to think about pacing, and you do have to think about your actors. And it all relies on you to be in a position to create something for the audience to react to and to engage with and to just enjoy. This is not the enjoyment he expected, but this is we are tasked as filmmakers with a scene like this to bring suspense and engagement into the audience, and this is literally the exact opposite in terms of execution. This wasn't made by someone who artistically wanted to direct correctly. This is made by someone who wanted to get a paycheck from Nickelodeon and make a deadline for June or July. But at the end of the day, also, a director is sometimes limited by the script that they're given. And most filmmakers will know it starts with the script. If the script doesn't work, the dialogue doesn't work, it is very difficult to take that and make it work on the screen. Have directors made bad scripts work? Like, my second favorite film of all time is Blade Runner. And Ridley Scott made a script that probably wouldn't have worked with others work for him. I will say, as a fan of that movie, some of the dialogue is clunky, some of the character moments are clunky, but he elevated it. Same thing with Alien. Ridley Scott took a B-level script and turned it into an A-level movie, which is one of my top 10 films. Alien somehow, some way works when that could have easily been given to Roger Corman and it would just have been a quick buck. So a script could matter in many ways. A script could be turned into something else other than what it is by a director, but at the end of the day, you do need something to work with. You do need something that's not going to hold you back, and when it's given to a director who doesn't know how to make the script work, you're screwed. A script is a blueprint. It starts with the script, and sometimes a director is a good idea person, but their ability to write is weak, and depending on who directs it, the dialogue does fall apart.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Not like here. Here everything is soft and smooth.
At the end of the day, I don't like sand, it's soft and coarse, it gets everywhere. I get the intention of the writer, who's George Lucas, and I get the intention of where he's going with. He's trying to show a specific contrast to where he is now, and on top of that, Maybe if through directing something was different, it could have shown that maybe he hates sand, but maybe he looks at it with nostalgia. Maybe he does miss his home. He doesn't like the sand, but he still misses his home. But at the end of the day, and George Lucas will sometimes say upright he is not the best director. There is a reason why Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back are seen in two different ways. Star Wars is amazing, it's great. Empire Strikes Back is a better movie in my opinion because it is dealt with a director, Irvin Kershner, who understands character, understands motivation, understands performance. You will notice if you watch those films back to back, the performances of that script is stronger in Empire Strikes Back, despite George Lucas writing. George Lucas writing in George Lucas's hands leads to certain moments in Star Wars which are iffy and certain moments like this. But at the end of the day, when you write dialogue like that, I don't know if the best director could have gotten Hayden Christensen to say these lines correctly, or to say just at the core of the script, if you give clunky dialogue, you are swimming upstream. And there are rules to dialogue. There's a rule to screenwriting, which is show, don't tell. Just subtlety is key, pacing is key, narrative. There's a multiple act structure, and there are moments in a script and a movie where a moment will die on its feet if you rely on exposition, bad dialogue, bad screenwriting to get you from point A to point B, which our boy, Neil is very good at doing.
Jim! Call 911! Jim! Jim! How could you have done this? Jim! I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide? I can't help you out of this one, Jim. With all we've been through, I can't pull you out of this one.
Now, honestly, I could have made this whole panel on Neil Breen movies. Because I should do a Neil Breen hour next year. Especially if his next film is out by then, there we go. But shots aside, it's shot mediocre. It is what it is. Neil Breen's acting, of course, is not great. But what got me about this is the dialogue of expressing your feelings out loud to an audience that doesn't exist. There's no scenario where you walk in, one of your best, closest friends is dead on the ground from suicide, and you start yelling to the sky, I cannot believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe. How could you do this? How can you commit suicide? And that's fundamentally weak writing. It's exposition. It is a crutch for writers to put into a script, or writer-directors, state how you feel because I'm concerned that the audience may not get it. Which I think is the biggest crime of filmmaking, is if you use exposition to carry your movie, it falls apart. You should not be in a position to say how you feel. Are there times in life when you can? Yeah. But within reason, it's a filmmaking medium. It is meant to be visual. It is meant to be visual, and Neil Breen's writing, as amazing as it is, in its ironic way, he relies tremendously on exposition for the audience to get his message, because at the end of the day, his directorial prowess is limited by that. He cannot be in a position, he can't find himself in a position to find subtlety or nuance or visuals. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to poo on him. I want him to make shitty movies. But if you look at it from a creative and artistic standpoint, his scripts break so many screenwriting rules, as we would all know. And then at the end of the day, Things can be masked. Things can be. Ooh, I see a hand raised. What? Tell me.
Is Neil self-aware?
That's what I'm debating. As somebody who I've been in this industry since I was 13, I genuinely think if enough people give you attention on a movie, the self-awareness won't actually hit you. Any publicity is good publicity. If thousands upon thousands of people are interested in your movie, you will ignore everything within your brain and just keep doing that because you think people like it. Even if they like it for cheesy, stupid reasons, you're going to roll with the punches. There's this big part of me that thinks that he's not self-aware, slightly. He knows what his audience wants. The fact that he's made so many movies and people keep watching them based on these incompetencies could be read two ways. Either he's aware that he's incompetent, he's rolling with the punches, or B, he doesn't care. If you're going to react to that and buy his DVDs, he's just going to keep making that. I think it's the latter. Just because, as a filmmaker, once you go into that hole of mild success, you're going to roll with whatever works for you. Hand.
So, is it one of those situations, like, you got bad, like, Reeves made bad movies, that they get distributed, the studios actually make money back on them, or is it like a producer type situation where they know they can just break it off?
What was the last thing you said? Where they normally what?
Would they actually make money off it, or is it like a producer's type situation where they go, oh, this was a total waste of money, we can write it off on our taxes and even save even more?
It could be both. That's the thing. At the end of the day, a tax write-off is a tax write-off, but it also, if your movie sucks to his multiple millions of viewers, highlights a movie, even if 10% of those people buy that DVD or buy it on streaming or give any publicity to that, he's made his money back and then some. A producer would be stupid to not grab that up because at the end of the day, as long as you're in the black, even a few bucks, and your studio can go into the next day and into the next day operating, a producer is not going to care. They just want black. And I work in an industry where you just have to make enough to offset what you spend, and you can keep doing it over and over and over again. As long as you have enough to spend spend money to employ your staff and to keep things going, it doesn't matter. I'm fairly certain his distributors, which if memory corrects me, he started getting some later on, but he spent most of his time self-distributing. He's probably getting in the black because his movies are not that expensive. But at the end of the day, it's a win-win. As long as money's coming in, whether through tax write-offs or whatever, a producer will do anything. They will do anything to just get some money coming in. Yes?
Give us a context or like a point of reference. When you say his films are not that expensive, what do you estimate to be like a ballpark budget that he would spend to make something like this?
I mean, off the top of my head, he probably would spend maybe $10,000 to $15,000. Which is, on one hand, a decent amount of money, but for a feature, not a lot. Most of those people are probably not getting paid. He probably owns all of the gear. He is in most of it. He's not paying himself. And if memory serves me, he's learned all of his editing tricks and his tactics on his own. If you look at the credits, it's 90% him. His overhead is so low that if you are spending a feature, I did a feature for $6,000. That was a Mega Man feature, and it was literally just me. For 4 years, just me. I didn't pay any actors. I was buying pizza for dinner, and the fact that I made it for that much, it's kind of reflected on the screen. A feature should not be made for that low. A feature should not be made for $10,000 or $15,000. There are too many people involved. There's too many aspects to be considered to spend that little on it. Like, I'm trying to get a feature off the ground this year, and the minimum I can get the budget to is $250,000. And that's on the low end, and that's me doing half of the post-production and doing cinematography and directing on my own. So the fact that his overhead is so low, he's going to keep pumping these movies out, and he's going to be in the black. And he's not going to change, because as long as people watch his movies, he's going to make enough money to eat and move on. Yes.
I have to leave, and I really just wanted to ask you this question.
Yes.
First of all, I was there, the Mega Man movie premiere.
Hey.
I was 13 years old. I watched it live when it premiered.
That's sick.
And I loved it. I haven't seen it since, but I really liked it.
Me neither. What a coincidence.
I just want to ask, like, what did you learn? What are the few things you learned from making that movie?
Know your limitations. Know more about your craft before you take on something. I will recommend anybody, like, if you want to do a feature for like $20, just do it. Make whatever you want. The whole core of this panel is you're going to make something, and the first thing you're going to make is going to be horrible. And it's not going to be good. 90% of the time, there's exceptions, and that's good. Because you have to know what doesn't work in order to know what works. And Mega Man, as fun as that was, I learned so much because in my mind, a lot of that movie didn't work. I broke so many exposition rules in that. The first 30 minutes are everyone talking about what they want to do for the next hour. And then there's action sequences and everyone's talking about what they want to do for the final act. And then there's an action scene. And then there's a finale where Rock is all like, I feel good about myself. And it's just like, I wouldn't have learned anything about writing if I didn't do that movie, and pacing and action and anything. And I love it from a nostalgic standpoint, but I learned a lot from it because what I failed on educated me on what works, which is the whole point of this panel. What doesn't work will educate you on what does work. We'll take questions after about 2 more slides because we're going to go into something that it's probably my favorite portion, which is editing, because, and you and I, Letty, were having this discussion yesterday about editing. There have been times in which I have worked with actors and actresses, and I expected one performance, I got another, I bent over backwards to get what I wanted out of them, and through editing, I was able to get what I wanted, but I worked really hard through editing, taking audio clips from different takes, making sure I cut to someone else when I didn't like a cadence in their eyes. Like, editing is the whole crux of fix it in post, which we will all say before we know better. Fix it in post, fix it in editing. And editing is an invisible tool because you do not know what bad editing is until you see it. Because the whole point of good editing is you don't see it. You don't see a cut. You don't see anything about a J cut, an L cut, how a scene is structured, because the whole point is if an editor and everybody else is doing what they have to do, you're not going to see it. And then hilarity ensues when editing is left unhindered. Aside from that being a masterclass in acting, editorially, that's a good question. That's an intention by the director. He shot it in slow-mo to emphasize the drama. But the thing is, unhindered, sitting on those shots for 7 to 8 seconds ain't helping your movie, and it's bringing so much attention to everything else in that scene. The acting, the pacing. At the end of the day, I mean, I will say, I love bad movies. I don't want to change bad movies. I don't want to take away what makes these movies memorable, but from an educational standpoint, this is an example of editing gone unhindered, because the whole purpose visually, if you're editing something, is to get from point A to point B. I got to give the audience information and cut to the point to get to the next element of the story. We just spent a minute and 30 seconds watching a guy dying. Dramatically. And there have been times, like, even Thanos fading off into existence took like 12 seconds. Cut to him. He's into dust. Like, and that's one of the biggest baddies of the last 10 or 15 years. Hans Gruber, my favorite baddie of all time, fell down. Took him 22 seconds. This guy, this bloke, took 2 minutes to die. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, could that have been resolved in editing? Probably. 6 seconds. And we move on. Now, granted, the hilarity of the scene is gone, but as a filmmaker, if I'm tasked with editing and trying to remedy that scene, the audience is smart enough to take the frames into their brain. And that is the lesson from this editorial segment is, don't think your audience is stupid. Our minds are so wired right now to take information in such a quick fashion. It is like music. Editing is like music. If you are editing your own project and you're watching it, think in your head, what am I taking in to get this message across? Some people go heavy-handed. Michael Bay has really fast action editing, but also Bayhem is something that we all love, because at the end of the day, I hate to say it, he kind of knows how to do an action scene. He allows moments as quick as they are, left to right. This guy lands. We cut to the shot establishing this. His movies are a mess, but also he's got a decent sense of blocking, which is why we don't hate him as much as an Uwe Ball or someone else who can't handle an action scene. Editing is a very powerful tool, and my education to you is when you're editing, think about your audience and think about you sitting there, how long it's going to take you to take that information in. As much as you want to sit on that gorgeous 10-second shot, if the point is given to you in 3 seconds, cut to the next shot, and then cut to the next shot. Get from point A to point B. Treat your audience with respect editorially. Editing is your Swiss Army knife in fixing the stuff you do. And editing is something we all do. If we're a YouTube content creator, if we're a musician, if we're a filmmaker, editing is a tool we all deal with, and it's so powerful. It can fix so much, hence fix it in post. I don't say rely on fix it in post, but know that editing is your friend, and to be cognitive of everything that you're seeing and the pacing of it. Because the audience ain't stupid. We know a character going from point A to point B. Segment because nothing is happening right now. It is something simple we do not notice in movies, which is where the audience isn't stupid. If you watch any competently edited movie, you do not need to see a character park, get out of their car, walk across the street and look both ways, get to the sidewalk, awkwardly walk down the sidewalk, open the door, and walk in. We can respect the audience to know that from the moment he parks, you could have cut to him walking in, and we will put it 2 and 2 together. That's the art of editing, is by juxtaposing 2 shots together, the audience can fill in the gaps. This was a minute and 20 of wasted time that could have been done in 15 seconds, and the audience would have got, he arrived at a diner, he walked into a diner. Now granted, him parking and driving is half of the appeal of this movie, but from an editorial standpoint, as an editor, I would have fought the director, James Wen, to cut it down by, but then again, if I remember correctly, I'm still trying to remember if he edited this on his own or not. I think he hired an editor, but actually edited it on his own, because he's that type of cat. And everything you need to know about pacing and editing is literally there. Something as simple as somebody walking to a diner is not going to fulfill the audience on an emotional level, on a character-driven level, and even on a visual level. It was wasted time. The audience is frustrated. You have to treat your audience with respect. Editing is literally the core key concept to treat your audience with respect, and I just spent a minute and 20 seconds watching this jerk walk across the street. And also, as you notice, this movie is my favorite in terms of cinematography because it's shot so awfully, which brings us into cinematography. Yeah. It's interesting. I picked that specifically because The Room isn't badly shot. It's not great. It's not badly shot. The movie is visually okay. He shot it in digital and film because he wanted options and he wanted to see what was more useful in post. And The Room is not poorly shot. It's just, it falls under the crux of Tommy Wiseau. Or it succeeds on the crux of Tommy Wiseau. And I will say, I have a love for Birdemic because Birdemic fails on every level, including cinematography. I can't say The Room fails in terms of cinematography. It just is a bland-looking movie. It's not a bad-looking, it's just bland. Birdemic is just a bad-looking movie. From the tripod shape, to the exposure, to the composition, to the line.
Excuse me, miss.
Yes?
I don't mean to bother you.
What?
I think I know you from somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, did you go to San Mateo High School?
Yeah, how'd you know that?
I went there too. So are you from here?
Not really. My mother lives up here, but I'm from San Francisco.
So, you can look at that and I love Birdemic because it's one of the few films in terms of cinematography that just gets everything wrong. Neil Breen movies have okay looking shots mixed with bad shots. Once he goes to green screen, it falls apart. But even the clip I showed earlier, lighting was okay. Framing was okay. Lighting, exposure was okay. Birdemic is a situation where exposure and focus and composition, the camera was tilted to the side unintentionally. Cinematography is designed to be, like editing, an invisible medium. You're telling the story of a film subconsciously to your audience. And that's the art of filmmaking. You're giving a vibe and a feeling, an emotion to your audience with subtext. As you know, Red Letter Media says, you don't notice it, but your brain does, which is my favorite quote of the last 20 years because it's true. We are specifically designing films to get you on a subconscious level. We put thought into films to hit you subconsciously. Cinematography is meant to be that. And there is no vision there. There is no care there. On a technical level, it's bad. On a creative level, it's bad. That's why I love Birdemic, because the cinematography and everything on that is just bad across the board. But then there's Hollywood movies that somehow, some way, despite the vibe, the production value, the cinematography just doesn't work.
Fucking shut it!
Now, if that was difficult to see, it's not because of my laptop or the clip. That's how it was shot. Alien vs. Predators Requiem is known for being overly dark and obviously a bad movie, but cinematography-wise, there are a lot of things here, despite the fact they have a budget, they have the right cameras, the right lights. Number one, geographically, and these are the lessons that you'll get, geographically, you do not know what's happening. You have no sense of space, which is the purpose of cinematography. Sense of space, sense of character, sense of tone. All of these things are broken because I don't know who's going where. I don't know what's happening. I can't even see, which at the end of the day, you can light a movie dark. Godfather is like one of the darkest movies you can see in terms of like lighting. That cinematographer is known as the master of darkness. But darkness comes with craft. You have to know how to separate. You have to know how to compose. You have to know to give a sense of depth if you're going to have darkness. And this movie is so fascinating to me because it's one of the few movies where the darkness is done without any artistry, without any sense of geography, without any sense, and especially when it comes to action scenes, which are the most difficult things to manage, because you got to keep your audience not only engaged, but a step ahead mentally to know where everyone is within the space of each other. If you're dealing with multiple characters fighting and going from point A to point B, the audience needs to know where they are in the space, what they're doing, and actually like get a sense of the dimensions. I cannot get a sense of anything here. One of my favorite action films of all time, I still think is the best MCU movie, is Winter Soldier. And you can watch that, and it's a great masterclass in action, because despite the fact that moments there's shaky cam, despite the fact the moments are just take a little bit of creative liberty with the camera, you get a sense of geography and action and tone and desperation and fear and suspense, everything you as a cinematographer want to give to your audience through lighting, through composition, through camera choices, through lens choices. And this is an example of literally one far end where I don't have any of that, versus Birdemic, where it just fails on a technical level across the board. And this brings us to the last slide, which, with everything together, this is my favorite moment because Letty, hi. 3 weeks ago, I showed you Birdemic for the first time. It was your first time sitting there and watching a bad movie with purpose. Like, you actually sat down. I didn't tell you what it was. And you talked through the whole movie in a way I never seen, in a good way, where you're like, what is this? What happened? Like, you did not even begin to fathom the movie you were watching. And then you showed clips to some family members, 9 and 12 years old, and it's one of my favorite moments that you mentioned to me, because it was this, I think it was this scene in terms of sound. I think it was this.
Hi.
Here's the menu.
Thank you.
I'll be right back with you.
These youngsters said to your face, who don't know a thing about movie making, wow, the sound of this movie is really bad. We do not know bad sound until we hear bad sound. And that broke every rule of bad sound, from lack of room tone, from unclean cuts, from just everything to take an audience out. It's why it's so hilarious. It's just every fundamental thing. And I love that, because if a 9 and a 12-year-old can actually see how something doesn't work in a movie, and I mean, when I was 10, I loved Howard the Duck. So if someone in that age range could look at a movie and go, wow, this doesn't work on a technical and fundamental level, that might be something that if they ever get into this business, they might take with them. They might remember, wow, I remember that one time, and this is how I learned all my lessons. I remember that one time where I saw something and it just didn't work. from 12 to 10, I just absorbed everything that just didn't work. And then I avoided doing it next time. And I avoid doing it next time. Even if I make a mistake over and over again, eventually that mistake is going to catch up to me and I'm going to know better and do better. Which is the whole point of this panel, is bad movies are subconsciously training you to know what doesn't work. I encourage you to watch bad movies just as much as good movies, because you do need to see what doesn't work. You're going to make mistakes, and they're not going to work. I mean, you can look at the humble beginnings of YouTube. James Rolfe, his first Angry Video Game Nerd video, certain elements in that were rough, or he will self-admit that. Then the next video got better. Then the next video got better. And then and you will see that across YouTube from everybody. Anybody who knows their craft and their art will absorb and say, hey, I need to learn from the faults. And I will encourage anybody to watch a bad movie, because you do not realize by absorbing all this, you are making your content better, and you're educating yourself, and you're becoming better content creators and better filmmakers. So do what I've been doing since I was 10. Just watch bad movies and learn. It's much cheaper than film school. Any questions? Yes?
So what, in your expert film opinion, is camp? How would you describe camp to like somebody who like bad movies or like wants to?
That's good. Camp is I would say me making Mega Man was camp. Camp is embracing the limitations and faults of your movie and exploring them without any restrictions. Camp, like Roger Corman is the king of camp, but he knows what he's doing. He's pumping out crap movie after crap movie on a low budget because he knows what the audience wants. There are many filmmakers. Stuart Gordon, who did The Reanimator. It's, you know your audience, you know what they want. Even Sam Raimi. I will say he is the best big budget camp director, but he knows what his audience wants. I know what to expect when I want to see a Sam Raimi movie. Camp is essentially the difference between intentional and unintentional. That's my philosophy on camp. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you ever seen like really bad dialogue salvaged by a great performance?
Oh hell yeah! It's crazy common. Because at the end of the day, a lot of good actors can make a lot. I will actually say one of my favorite movies is Interstellar, and there's some really clunky dialogue in there. And somehow Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway make the dialogue work in certain areas, despite the fact that dialogue should not have been written in the first place. And that is one of my favorite movies. But I will sit here and say certain lines were not meant to be on paper. But I love that movie because somehow, some way, Chris Nolan believed in his weird dialogue and his actors delivered it correctly. I mean, most blockbusters are going to have clunky dialogue, but if an actor knows how to deliver it, I can name dozens and dozens of moments. It takes a good actor to make it work. Anything else? Yes?
What would you say, like, you've seen films, what would you say, like, make the fault of that that's really hard on display? Remember, I watched these documentaries from the actor who's from, and the director of that movie, who's telling the guy, he legitimately believed that he was making, like, something else.
Yeah.
Like, our message to him, like, it's not there, I'm sorry, you know?
I will actually not poo-poo. I think it's a bad movie, but I love it. I won't poo-poo on it too much because I think it's a byproduct of a cultural and language barrier.
Yeah.
Some filmmakers from other countries, like Paul Verhoeven, their style transitions into RoboCop, which I think is one of the greatest movies ever made. And Trolls 2, you have someone from, I think he's from Italy. It's a director from Italy who didn't take an American audience into consideration and just took his giallo, his Italian mentality, and carried it over, and instead of giving his actors the ability to like change and adapt. If I saw the same documentary, he was hard-headed. He just was like, this is how we're gonna do it. And I think the crux of a director being able to be flexible with a new cultural audience is what hurt that movie the most.
Yeah, he seems very flexible, even like after all the years, like, you know, if that movie was just done in Italy with an Italian cast and Italian dialogue, it may have not been as famous as it is, because he probably would have just made it work in his own country. But he took his Italian mentality, and instead of adapting it like a Paul Verhoeven, he just, I don't care, we're doing it this way. It looks like we're out of time, everybody. I want to thank you for stopping by and making me feel mildly special on this Saturday.